Hello, everybody. So, yeah, I've been thinking more about some of the comments that I received in relation to my last video on this group online. And one of them actually related to my education. They said, in my voice, they detect a bit of private school. And of course, you are absolutely correct. Fine. But I'd appreciate it, though, if you didn't for that reason, think that I'm a sort of entitled douchebag and think that I deserve, for some reason, or because of my education, which I don't think I do, like the top jobs in society or anything of that nature, because I genuinely don't. And the reason, like, for that matter, I wouldn't actually get those top jobs in society, I don't think, because I haven't gone to, well, my first university was quite a good university. It was Utrecht University in the Netherlands, which is one of the better universities in Europe, and then University of East Anglia, and then University of the West of England. But I got three Bs at A level. I got three As, three Bs, and three Cs at GCSE. And I'd like to explain a little bit more about what my attitude towards private education is in the UK and tell you a little bit more about what the experience of it is really like for anyone who's interested. So, yeah, I was originally at primary school. I was educated in the state system for the first 3 years or so of my education, and then for whatever reason, I think my parents may have come into a bit more money. My parents, well, my dad's a farmer. My mum ran a delivery yard while she was married to my dad, but now divorced um, on our farm. So I think sort of the business shored up a little bit more and had some more disposable income, and they sent me to a private primary school. And from then on, I was in the private education system until I left secondary school at the end of A levels, i.e., end of what most people go to, which is sixth form college, with three Bs. And my attitude towards the private system is I dislike it. I dislike the fact of its existence. It is deeply unfair. It is it is a way for rich people to rig the game of education in their favor, in the favor of their children. It is it's a black mark, I think, to some extent on our society. It is a mark of ingrained privilege, um, social dominance by uh, elites, basically, who have the money to send their children to private schools. And the two reasons you send your children to private schools to get them better results, to get them into the best universities and so on, is A, the longer hours that you get at private school, more exposure to the material, hence. And secondly, smaller class sizes, and hence more individual attention given to students. And that is more or less what you're paying for when you send your kids to a private school. So I dislike the fact that these places exist and they offer those who are already privileged in society a way to uh, attain the highest positions in society and go to the best universities and so on. And if you look at the demographics making up the student bodies of Oxford and Cambridge universities, 50% of them will be coming from the private sector of education, whereas only 7% of kids at schools are in the private sector in education. So there's this massive stilting in favour of the privately educated when it comes to those top universities. And the same is true largely of the Russell Group institutions in the UK, i.e., the old red brick universities and those sorts of places. The student body's disproportionately made up of public school boys like myself. The awful twats that we are. I I cry. Yeah, and it's not worth laughing about. So yeah, uh, and my sister as well. She went through the private education system. She she's a very tenacious, intelligent, hard-working person, and yeah, she managed to accrue 10 A stars and an A at GCSE. Ooh. And I think she got three A stars at A level. And she went to the University of Edinburgh to study Arabic and Spanish, dropped the Spanish and stuck with Arabic, and now works for a charity in Glasgow, sorry, helping refugees who've settled in the city. So I think, she's less of the sort of upper crusty type when it comes to the public school type, and more of, the person who I think does sincerely want to make the world a better place for her, having been in it. And her attitude to being at private school was, I think, the attitude that's more encouraged by private schools, which is, well, you're here, you may as well work your arse off, work as hard as humanly possible to, yeah, get those top positions in society and contribute more to society, on the basis of having been given a leg up by the system. And I think there is something to be said for that way of thinking, or that philosophy behind it, or that justification for it. I don't know though so much about that. My attitude was the exact opposite, which was to do as little work as humanly possible, skate through on the seat of my pants, rebel against the system, and yeah, not achieve results which were all that great, frankly, by the standards of private schools, but which I think most people consider actually to be reasonably good results. And that fact speaks volumes about what it means to go to one. What it means to go to it essentially inoculates you against failure. It, and I was thinking about it, I always used to have, I think, a tinge of pride about me. I managed to get through school with, such reasonable grades, I think, by doing so little. But then again, I must have been doing the work, because they'd have thrown me out otherwise eventually, which they didn't. So I still was actually doing the work. I was still turning in the homework, prep, i.e., a bit of horrible private school slang for you, like tuck shop. Yeah, like the last school I went to had a shop on campus, like a sweet shop. Anyway, um, yeah, that sort of stuff happens. Uh, yeah, so like I didn't deserve those grades, not really. I was doing all my homework in like the break period before lessons, and on a piece of paper on a couple of sides of A4, quickly scroll it out. But I mean, what did that experience teach me? The experience of having to hand it in, of having this big overbearing pressure of these teachers on you all the time for work, and really drilling you and making you work. Yeah, I mean, well, it made me able to turn in essays which could get B's and C's, and be able to write those within, yeah, about 20 minutes or so. So what does that what does that give you, like adaptitude of being able to do? Write quickly, for exams. So yeah, my coursework suffered, but my exams didn't. I was getting A's in my exams, regardless of, and everyone was like, yeah, well, he does the least amount of work, he just skates through on the seat of his pants. I was like, and the rest of them, I had this attitude, we're here trying hard. We're going to contribute to society. We're going to become, great people in our fields and all this sort of thing. And I do respect that attitude to some extent. It's my sister's attitude, and I do sort of acknowledge where that's coming from. But I see a system which is deeply unfair by the standards of society. I think really institutions which, more should be fostering talented kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, and there are none of those there at all at private school. Um, Not really. They either come from a background of privilege, or more often as well, you get a sort of mix of relatively normal, frankly, kids whose parents are in the armed forces, um, who may be bright, they might not be that bright, they might be middling or whatever, but part of their parents' employment contract with the armed forces very often entails that their kids get sent to boarding school so that they don't have to take care of them, and because they're always off on some like tour in some foreign land and what have you. So that's also part of it. Um, yeah, and it does give you this accent, which I think a lot of people dislike, or I think a lot of people think is like quite ridiculous, and yeah, I think it may be as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. So, and like also when it comes to like what I do now, I work in agriculture. I work on farms. So like, also like, is there sort of this superiority complex among people who, yeah, do go off to the best universities here in the UK, Oxford and Cambridge and so on? Like, I am still contributing to society, by the way. I'm contributing something very important to it. I'm contributing food. We're always going to need that, aren't we? I think when it comes to like, do we need farmers and food? I think that is one thing that you'd find it hard to argue. Yeah, we need farmers, definitely. They seem to be important for some reason. But yeah, so yeah, I bummed around at school, didn't do much work. They voted me the most likely to become homeless. These posh kids at school, and I did become homeless also twice, um, for various reasons to do with mental health and what have you, and all that sort of thing. That nice stuff. Sorry, I'm just gonna go to the toilet. So yeah, I mean, I was thinking a lot about this recently and what was sort of motivating or underlying my attitude towards work, my attitude towards this opportunity, this supposed, I think, opportunity that has been presented to me in the form of private school education or public school education, whichever you like to refer to it as. So I think what if I were to flatter myself, it might be out of idealistic reasons and possibly from a sort of desire to approximate the mean, when it comes to results in education, sort of the mean of all comprehensive and grammar schools lumped in together and private schools, and just sort of approximate the flat end of the curve, in spite of having been given quite a significant leg up in terms of an opportunity, so that I can sort of go through the rest of my life, um, frankly, not having to consider myself entitled, frankly, to anything better or worse than what most of my fellow man, so to speak, could reasonably expect from life, if you know what I mean. So, well, like a reasonable house in a reasonable area, I don't know, with reasonable grades, reasonable salary, and so on. Something like that, like just average-ish, average, yeah. And I don't think like that's such a bad sentiment, but I might be flattering myself a little bit if I were to try and think about it. And I think about like why I was really like that. And I think actually part of the real reason why I was like that is because the expectations at a private school are set so very high, and you are made to work harder, and a lot of emphasis is placed upon you to work hard. And particularly if you seem bright, seem like you have academic, intellectual, let's say, potential of some description. And as a scholarship kid at my secondary school, I was given, I think it was like 30% off school fees for having got a scholarship to it. So I was expected to work harder and aim for Oxbridge. If not Oxbridge, most certainly Russell Group unis. And I originally wanted to be a barrister, very, very stereotypical, this sort of thing. Little Tory boy. Also had a briefcase at school. Yeah, I did. I was a briefcase wanker. I was Will from the In-Betweeners. Um, yeah, because my parents at the private primary school, everyone had to have a briefcase for some reason. It was like a silly little like ridiculous cutesy affectation, and frankly, it looks a bit absurd in retrospect that we all had briefcases at primary school, and like little business people, off, onto the corporate ladder in the city and so on, and all this sort of thing. And my parents like allowed me to go to secondary school with a fucking briefcase. What did I do, of course? Did I get rid of the briefcase straight away? No. I stuck with it. I stuck with my original briefcase for the first year, yeah, year 7. Didn't discard it and immediately capitulate and get a backpack like the rest of them. No. Stuck with the briefcase. Year 2, year 8, got a new briefcase. Yeah, so yeah, stick it like in a sense to the man, but also like to the cool kids in a way. Yeah, it's like soldier on and all this sort of thing. Yeah, and yeah, as a briefcase wanker, I was a strange, eccentric child. I'm a bit of a slightly odd, rather somewhat eccentric, a little bit eccentric adult. But yeah, and then in year 9, I did start trying to cool myself up. Becoming a little bit cooler with a satchel, like a sort of laptop bag, intermediary between briefcase and the ultimate goal, which was a backpack, like the rest of them. And eventually I did get a backpack, and sort of yeah, conformed actually. So that was my trajectory through geeky little Tory boy to sort of pubescent backpack wearing teenager with sort of who like look like me now but shorter and younger. Uh, yeah, but where was I? Yeah, so and my philosophy with this is why I didn't work as hard, why I rebelled more. I think on a level also, I felt that either way, the results I get at this place, this school, this private school I'm at, are a little bit meaningless, if you see what I mean. I mean, I can work hard and maybe get A stars, even straight A stars, or have a few A stars, lots of A's. Maybe there'll be here and there or something. I don't know, and really fulfill my potential as they order us to, for their own purposes, which is, by the way, to secure the highest position possible for them on the league tables, so that in turn they can secure their intake of the highest performing students. And private schools are usually selective. They have entrance exams and things like this, and then the scholarship sort of exam separate to that for the more high performing, supposedly, kids. And yeah, uh, and so on it goes, and it just keeps the merry-round going around. This education factory, if you like, which wants to just secure its own existence and continue. But yeah, so I thought I'd rebel against that because I think either way my results are a bit meaningless. I don't mean a lot. If I get the A stars and so on, I've got a leg up. So it feels a bit like, frankly, a hollow victory since someone's paid money. Ultimately, my family paid money to secure that. So how good do I really feel about it? I don't think in that situation I'm entitled to feel that good about it. And I think for a long time also, with my, B's and a couple of A's at GCSE and C's and so on, I did feel, a little bit good about myself. I think I felt like good about myself, like sort of like in my mind or something managed to beat the system. But also in a sense, another hollow victory. Another sort of way in which they were shielded from failure because of the drilling and the making you work and so on. And they'll yell at you, and say you've got to do it. You must work harder. They're like that. They are. They're pushy as fuck. I don't think you get that in the state system quite so much. I don't know. I don't know. I think sort of that education philosophy is a bit more like, I don't know, maybe more approachable, more like sort of mutual respect between staff and teacher and pupils, or something from my limited knowledge of that system. In our private school, it is they are in charge and you do as you're told. That's the system there. It's It's yeah, exactly what you expect from old-fashioned boarding schools, you know, but a bit toned down from like the Tom Brown school days era of things. You had like younger pupils being the servants of the older ones. Nothing like that was going on. And all this sort of issue of sodomy in boarding houses and so on. I didn't really hear much of that actually. Although at Dauncy's, which was my second, I did hear of one rather disturbing incident of aboard a young man having a tube of toothpaste emptied into his anal cavity. And I don't know what happened with that. But that, again, is like that sort of thing. Is like, I'd say, oh, it's just an urban myth, but I don't think it was. I think that probably really happened. And that's a fairly disturbing, despicable event, but whatever. And yeah, you know, you do get that sort of thing. Oh yeah, and I was bullied as well. I was the shortest kid in my year group. Had a briefcase, everything. Everyone took the piss out of me. So because like people taking the piss out of me, I've had way more experience of it than most people. I promise you. Like, in terms of like the angles which it's possible to take the piss out of me, I don't know. I think I've managed to isolate most of those avenues and get it down to as few things as possible. And you know, your avenues for assault really are limited at this point when it comes to me. The original briefcase wanker. Watch yourself. But yeah, I also invented the iPhone. What I really did is, obviously, I have no rights to that piece of intellectual property because I don't own things like the Apple trademarks and so on. But I did ring up Apple in year 7 after having designed a phone for them with like the clicky wheel. It was actually a flip phone. Yeah, I rang up Apple. Said, I've been doing all these designs for a phone. I think you should really do a phone. I think you should get into like mobile phone communications. Guess what? A few years later, the iPhone comes out. Go figure. And I, in my eccentric mind, sort of believed, like the guy who tried to claim the moon and Mars in America, that I could claim the moons of the gas giants in the solar system. I was particularly interested in the moon Titan, since if I were to control those resources of hydrocarbons on Titan, at current oil prices, it would make me the richest human being that had ever lived by orders of magnitude greater than John D. Rockefeller, who's the richest man who ever lived, like the United States' biggest oil baron, and Ramesses II, and all of those, by by an enormous margin. But controlling an entire moon filled with petroleum or oil, hydrocarbons. So yeah, I think also I might have submitted it to a solicitor's and got it stamped and everything by solicitors. Actually, before the Cassini-Huygens mission and before the Huygens lander landed on Titan. So I think I might have primacy over it like that. I rang up NASA to complain to them and the White House. And I also Googled on the school internet how to build a nuke. So I was that kid who wanted to know how to build a nuke, you know, and was supposed to be wanting to be a barrister. That's all. I think what I wanted to be, of course, was a spy. No, I did a little bit want to be a spy, for real. Yeah, I don't think I want to be a spy anymore, as such. Farming seems pretty good, frankly, at the moment. And sort of laissez-faire public intellectualism in my spare time. Even that sounds so fucking awfully private schoolish. I know, it's horrifyingly awful, isn't it? Horrifyingly awful. There we go, another one. But never mind. Yeah, so I think on reflection, perhaps what I felt was something like despair. I'm sort of like, I'm trapped. I can't really prove myself in either case. You know, I can't really approximate the mean of education results in the country. I can go on to maybe achieve stellar success. Who knows? But again, a hollow victory. Because it comes, you know, after having been given a leg up a significant leg up. And it's like a case of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So I just floated through. And I hated school. I hated it. I hated being there. And frankly, I don't know. If I was left in the state system, I don't think I was doing too badly in it either. I think if I might have got through, and you never know, maybe without the support, I would have applied myself more. I'd take more of an interest in classes and so on, and do like less fucking around and being the class clown, trying to make people laugh, which was what I spent a lot of time doing also. And like gradually cultivating the ambition of becoming a stand-up comic, um, really in the back of my mind, and a writer sort of in the hinterlands of my mind, while going through phases of outwardly wanting to be a barrister, outwardly wanting to be a doctor, then eventually saying I want to be a writer, whatever that is, like what a writer of what? Like the first question Hemingway asks in Midnight in Paris. Now, what do you mean a writer? What do you want to be, a poet, a novelist? What do you want to be? And like you don't want to be a writer, you want to be the best writer, don't you? And that is equally true. you know. And I don't know where I got the ambition from. It's like, Stuart Lee is quite right. It was the vaulting ambition of the writer, because it is. If you consider what's possible with writing, what have I ended up writing? Started history books and science and philosophy books, as well as novels and poetry and short stories and scripts and TV and film scripts as well in the mix. I can't keep fucking track of the shit I've written. And I got my first attempt at a novel stolen from me at school by little shitty worms of private school kids, public school boys. And one of them who did it as well, guess where he came from? He came from the state system. Yeah, there's no shortage of little shitbags in the state system. Otherwise, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about, But he did. He was there. And by the way, he was, I reckon, getting groomed for Cambridge. He ended up going to Cambridge from a very young age by his mother, who went to Cambridge. And I reckon that choice to send him to the local comprehensive, you know what I reckon that was? I reckon that was tactical state school. Because his parents, they're pretty well off. I've been to his house. He's got a very nice house. He actually lived in a larger house than about as large as my house, and about as old, but without the land. And hence the hard work also. But yeah, I did not like school. I hate being ordered around. I hate having my life dictated and controlled by other people. I have a natural tendency to rebel against authority, and certainly to question authority at the very minimum, which I think is healthy, though perhaps it's not for everyone. But yeah, what sort of kid would I be in like state school? I don't know. I'd be doing more drugs than I was at school, and yeah, maybe really falling out of the system and doing terribly. Who knows? But becoming, I don't know, a drug addict or something. I don't know. Instead of just like sort of experimenting with a bit of grass here and there, a bit of weed occasionally. But yeah, and what else was I? I was depressed also. More later on, I think. I was depressed at home. I was unhappy at home, and at school, I was frankly more like energetic and manic, and like compulsively like taking the piss out of people and having a really good time and a laugh. Because like school was like my sort of free time. I had sort of like all sorts of trouble going on at home, like nasty domestic shit situations. Frankly, quite an unpleasant atmosphere, particularly my mother's house, which I won't get into too much. But I caused like home to be a place of like a lot of tension and stress and anxiety, and like being at home made me miserable, and I'd sort of let off steam at school and become, really quite gregarious, I think, and playful, I think, and maybe a bit mean also from time to time, unfortunately. So yeah, and yeah, trying to be like the class clown all the time, and sort of like the the unindoctrinated rebel without a cause sort of person, but also like feigning that I'm going to join the system and try and dominate it. And I don't know, like in a sense, like also like trying to like parody the Hooray Henry type. Well, having sort of genuine artistic and creative interests and taking those seriously and taking writing seriously. And so that said, like I think like the writer ambition sort of crystallized in my mind when I was about 15 doing my GCSEs. And I went from Warminster School, which was my first school where I did my GCSEs, to A levels at Dauncy's. I think I sort of hit upon journalism more, like, 'cause I had an opportunity to write for a small school publication. Um, and I thought, oh, fucking hell, I'm going to put my hat back on again. I've had enough of this. There we go. Hat to cure hat hair. Anyway. Yeah, and like falling in love with the most beautiful girl at school, obviously. I'm not gonna say who she is, but yeah, so this beautiful horse riding, sort of olive skinned, brown haired London girl showed up at Dauncy's, and I immediately fell head over heels in love with her. And she was incredibly gorgeous, and sort of like brash and cool and confident, basically everything I wasn't at the time. And yeah, I don't know, there's me like little farm boy with a horse yard at his house, just trying to figure out how I can slip that into conversation somehow. Maybe she'd be interested in me for that reason. I don't know. Yeah. So there was her, and she took up a lot of my thinking time, and the rest of the time I was like thinking about writing novels and stuff, and fucking off schoolwork to the greatest extent possible. But yeah, that was school for me. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I hated every minute of it, but I had some good times as well. I had some good friends, made some laughs, even though they stole a fucking 82 pages of like a teenage road trip drug taking movie book, based loosely on like uh, on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, or inspired by it, as of fitting into this a teen fiction demographic, which maybe is probably best I didn't end up writing, because if it got published, well, then I'd be that sort of author, wouldn't I? I'd be a young adult fiction author. There are plenty of those. Whereas I could, go on to write, I don't know, serious science fiction or something, which is the next ambition I sort of moved on to. And then insane twisted shit like Sergeant Arson, which is the novella I'm currently working on, which I'm just going to call a novel because I've come up with my own theory of a novel. A novel is anything over 100 pages of fiction, okay? And that's it. No more stupid categories like novelettes or novella, anything like that. A novel is over 100 pages. Anything under 100 pages is a novella, let's say, or a long short story, or a pamphlet. So anyway, that's a ramble about private school over. Please don't think I'm so entitled. I tried my darndest to remove culpability for entitlement within me. I tried to the best of my ability. Okay? I purposely sabotaged my own grades for that reason, if I'm not flattering myself. And if it wasn't just motivated by a desire to not do that much work. And think about all sorts of other things, or maybe it's motivated by problems at home, and me not wanting to think about that, and like that causing trouble with my mind, and causing me to need to heal my mind or attempt to. But yeah, or on a level that I just felt disillusioned with the system. I think this is closer to the truth, that I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. And I didn't really realise I could skate through quite so easily. I think at GCSE, well, I was rather actually surprised I got grades which were as good as they were. Because I was expecting like D's, one or two at least. But yeah, that didn't happen. Uh, no, I did reasonably well, and that did surprise me a bit because the narrative they were pushing on me was like, as we say, if you don't work as hard as you possibly can, you will get all E's, and then you'll drop out of school, become homeless, become a drug addict, you'll certainly end up in prison, and all this sort of thing. And yeah, that's the standard myth they like feed into your mind, but it's total bullshit. And you're given a horribly, dreadfully, uh, an unfair advantage over 93% of the population just by attending one of those places. And somehow you have to get your conscience around it, I think. And you certainly have to stop being quite so smug about the fact that you got these excellent grades, because you had a big advantage given to you in the process that allowed you to get those grades. And yeah, it might not even frankly reflect like such a depth of learning as you might like to think it does, if you have that. Certainly, if you're just coming out of A levels and so on, the excellent grades possibly offers for Oxbridge even. No, learning happens mostly outside the classroom, and it's about your private interest that you cultivate in your spare time, and about your own creative artistic pursuits. And what you learn eventually in education, when you get to the point where you start contributing to knowledge, is that it's actually about what you can produce rather than what you can have, shoveled into your brain by lecturers, and what you can like churn out in form of quote embed as many quotes in it as possible, get the highest mark, tick all the boxes and so on. It becomes less like that and more like you have to start swimming around in knowledge on your own and seeing where that process leads you. More like that, I think. But that's like the really fun bit, I imagine. And I have always wanted partly to get to that bit. But maybe I won't be. And I'll become like the serial university dropout that I am. And David Hume never had a degree, so there. Michael Faraday never had a degree, although he was apprenticed to Humphrey Davy. But yeah, lots of people haven't had degrees. They've gone on to great success. Spinoza didn't have a degree. Descartes, I don't believe, had a degree. But anyway, enough of this. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye bye.